Let's take a look at editing text and numbers. Let's add 5 rows of data. Let's start from cell A1 and let's type in the following numbers. 12.34, press enter. 56.78, enter. 90.12, enter. 34.56, enter. 78.90, enter. First of all, we see that the 0 does not appear, even though you did type it in. It is not considered an important value at this point. We can force it in, we can tell Excel to put it in, but for the time being, let's just leave it. It's not really that important. Now, let's learn different ways of adding up data. One way is we can put the cursor where we'd like the sum to be, and we can press what's called autosum. Now, if we double click that, we will see we have a sum which is 272.7. That's a very quick way of doing it. Let's go to another way. Another way is we can put an equal sign and we can ask Excel to add up the 5 rows by referring to the cells where they are. We can say equals A1 plus A2 plus A3 plus A4 plus A5. Now that's a very inefficient way of doing it. Press enter and you get the same result. Of course, you have a lot of typing to do and you can make a mistake. There are better ways to do that, and we won't be using this technique in the future. Another way of doing it, and let's erase it again as well, we can type in equals sum, and that is the function called the sum function, put in parentheses, and then you can refer to the cells which you would like to add up by taking the cursor, moving it to the top cell, which is A1, and you can either press enter and then put in a period. Notice what happens. It then expands on the bottom to A1, A1, period, A5, and put in the parentheses, and notice there's a box that surrounds it, and press enter, and lo and behold, we see the same result. And let's discuss another way. Another way is by pressing equals sum and put in parentheses, and now we can, this is called the paint and drag, the technique I like the most, whereby you hold down the cursor and you highlight the cells you want to add up, and if you wish you could put in the end parentheses. If not, press enter and it'll give you the result. Notice the formula appears on top over here and it tells you what you typed in. And now we can get rid of it one more time if we wish, or we can leave it for the time being. There are other ways of putting the result in, and we will probably cover them later or throughout our Excel. Now, if you don't want to show the result here, let's say in A7, but you do want to see what is the result of adding up those 5 numbers, you can highlight the 5 numbers and you can go down to the bottom of the screen and notice it says on the bottom the average of the 5 numbers is 54. There are 5 numbers and the sum is 272.7. That's pretty interesting. And by changing one of those numbers, automatically you will see the sum will change there to something else as well. Okay, let's press the escape key. Let's get out of this, and you notice the numbers now disappear. Let's look at really what Excel is all about, and let's put in use a very simple application by putting in the following. Let's type in cell A7, and in fact, notice on the bottom it says sheet 1, sheet 2, and sheet 3. Excel gives us 3 sheets initially to work with. A sheet is nothing more than a sheet of paper. So if I would like to turn my sheet from sheet 1 to sheet 2, click on sheet 2, and now it is blank. To go back, press on sheet 1, I can go back to where I was before. So let's go to sheet 2 for a moment, and let's type in an example to illustrate how Excel really does its thing. Let's type in adding example, and let's press the Enter key, and let's put in the number 18 in cell B5. And now to move it over to cell C5, we'll be learning new things as we continue rather than repeat them each time. Press the right arrow key, and let's put in the number 35 and press the right arrow key. And I'd like to now sum up these two numbers. Now, one way to sum them is what I just went over with you before, and let's just illustrate that again by putting in equals, and we can say sum, and we can put in parentheses, we can highlight those two values, and we can press enter, and notice the sum is 53. Now 18 plus 35 is 53, and notice on top it tells us that. But the power of Excel is by changing a number, it'll automatically be updated. So for example, let's change the number 35 to 36. And watch what happens when now I can either press enter and the cursor will go to the next row, or we can press on top this a check mark, which means enter, and the cursor will stay in that cell. It's up to you where you want the cursor to be when you're done. So let's press the check mark, and notice cell D5 when we press it. It automatically changes to 54 because the sum now 18 and 36 is equal to 54. Okay, now the numbers will continue to work that way, and notice you have enough room in the cell to add large numbers as well. We will see what happens again when you have a very large number or other things which can be what's called exceptions. And I'll just demonstrate one of them with you right at this point. 18 plus 36 we saw was 34. Now let's say I make a mistake. Instead of having B5 and C5, I put in B5 and let's say D5. Notice what happens when I press the check mark. It gives me a circular reference warning. Now this is important to see what this means, and you can read the information, is that the formula is incorrect. And you need to change it because you're trying to add up values and it is not a correct situation. So what we need to do is either read more about circular reference, or else, if we know that we made that mistake, we can close that out, go to the cursor go to the cell where we have that error, and we make the change. So change it from B5 to D5 to what it should be, B5 and C5. And now you will press the enter key, and you will now have the correct result. Hopefully we're going to be careful in entering numbers and data so that we get the correct results. But you should be aware circular reference means that you enter the cell value reference incorrectly, and you must go back, otherwise the whole spreadsheet could be messed up. We'll just see a technique how Excel can easily find for us the mistake in circular reference, and an approach we can take to easily figure out where it is. Assuming we're adding these two numbers, but by mistake we type in the following equals sum, and we are including all three rows, we get a error reference. And let's skip this part, and let's go to where it says formulas. Let's go to where it says error checking, and we see the term circular reference. It tells us the cell is H9, and we look at H9, we hopefully should be able to find the error that occurred by looking at the formula that we typed in.